On any typical day, you may find Mayor Charles Lamb taking a walk along a neighborhood trail. On this brisk morning, he's walking the trail at the Edmond's relatively new downtown detention facility. It was a project that Charles has seen come to fruition since serving on the city council.
I just enjoy walking in the parks in the morning when I get my time to do so without distraction, so I call them tranquility walks or opportunities to just walk and think.
Though retired from being a housing consultant, you could easily say that Charles is one of the busiest people in Edmond. If the weather permits, you may often see him taking his motorcycle from one meeting to another. Born in Perry, Oklahoma, Charles Lamb moved with his folks and siblings to Edmond in 1959 when he was still a teenager. He graduated from Edmond High School, back when there was only one high school in Edmond to graduate from. He went on to receive an associate degree in liberal arts at Wentworth Military Academy in Lexington, Missouri. He also earned a bachelor's degree in history with English and business minors at UCO. Along the way, Charles also joined the Oklahoma National Guard. It was around this time that a military buddy of his decided to set him up on a blind date with a woman named Sherry. A blind date that didn't get off to a very good start.
He's just real quiet. He's a student, and he stands back and he studies things before he ever talks. I decided to go out with him again, so I must have liked something. It must not have bothered me too much.
2 months and 8 days later, Charles and Sherry were married. They eventually had the opportunity to move into the same home Charles grew up in and were able to raise their 2 children there as well. Even today, their home is the hangout for the grandchildren as well. After graduating from UCO, Charles passed the civil service exam and went on to work for the Housing and Urban Development Federal Housing Authority.
And my job was ultimately to deal with land development applications. So I dealt with community development issues, zoning issues, land use issues, environmental review issues, flood issues, all of the kinds of things that in Edmond are pretty significant with regard to our growth. And that experience is really what I brought or thought I could bring to the process of being a council member.
Part of his duties involved speaking before the city council and planning commission. As he learned more and more about the planning of a city, Charles felt he could do more to help his community.
I remember taking a walk one night, and he said, "What would you think if I ran for council?" And we never looked back. I mean, it was a decision that we talked to the kids about, and they were like, "Great, cool, go for it."
So in 1989, and with the help of his family, Charles ran for the Ward 3 council position.
Kids went out and door to door with me. We really bonded over the political process during that first campaign.
They knocked on doors, and they handed out brochures, and they knew the issues. I mean, he sat down and talked to them. So if someone said, "Well, what does he think about this?" they could pretty much tell them. They learned very early in life that you need to be a public servant and you need to give back to the community. And that's been a big lesson he's taught them.
It could even be one of the reasons why Charles' son, Eric, became one of the most dedicated public servants possible. Today, he is a police officer in Guthrie. Charles' daughter has also helped with community projects in Edmond. Though they worked hard during that campaign in the late 80s, Charles lost the election.
But I drew some attention, and I got appointed to the Planning Commission as a result.
Charles also served on the Edmond Economic Development Authority and spent 2 years on the Appeals and Adjustment Board. In 1993, when the Ward 3 seat opened, Charles ran again, and this time he won the election. In that same year, Charles was chosen to represent Edmond as the elector in the Oklahoma Municipal Power Authority Board. OMPA is the power provider for Edmond Electric. They have an 11-member board that represents all of the 39 member cities who also own their public utility. After serving 8 years as a board member, Charles was asked to be the chairman in 2001, which he's done ever since.
It's been a beneficial experience and a fun experience because my board is made up of elected officials, other mayors, and city managers. So it's mostly a professional board, and we have a very focused mission, the low-cost, reliable power.
Charles served the 4-year term as Ward 3 council member, but lost re-election in 1997.
The election I lost in '97 was a bit more emotionally challenging for me. because I wasn't ready to be done. I felt I was still able to give more, and I thought there was still quite a bit to be done.
Even though he was no longer on the city council, Charles continued to serve on the OMPA board and volunteer his time wherever he could. He became directly involved with helping Edmond receive the Tree City status. The fruits of his efforts can be witnessed in March when Edmond students participate in the Arbor Day poster contest. Winners each year are presented with their awards at the city council meeting.
I can't tell you how excited it is for me to see the things that the commission and the staff have done with kids, the art programs, and having those kids come in front of the city council, and the excitement around that is so personally satisfying. It's really hard to describe.
Charles was also heavily involved with the Tomorrow's Edmond project, an endeavor that drew upon the help of over 200 volunteer citizens. Together they developed an overall vision of Edmond's future, recognizing the significance of trees and the importance of Edmond's downtown area. They included vision statements that would eventually lead to the downtown plan, the development of the urban board, reinvestments in the downtown infrastructure, and even the construction of the festival marketplace.
One of the things we do in Edmond is we pride ourselves on values, community values. The Tomorrow's Edmond project defined those. And so that's a place to go as a resource when you're saying, well, what would you do here? Well, you can look at that and you can get some guidance out of that.
Charles was certain that he had more to do as a public servant, so he campaigned again in 2001 and won the election.
There's a satisfaction in contributing to the fabric of this community and seeing the benefit or the outcome of the improvement or the change that you're working on manifest itself. It's a very, very satisfying thing.
Though being a public servant takes motivation and dedication, Charles understands that support from family, friends, and especially his wife is necessary too.
No member of the council can be an effective member without a partner that's supportive.
I've missed probably less than 10 meetings in 14 years. I watch them all the time. I love them. For one thing, that's his life. And if I don't watch him, and if he doesn't talk to me about what's going on, then I miss out on his life. And so I choose not to separate that because that's a big part of who we are.
In 2003, 2 years after being re-elected, Charles was chosen by the council to serve as the mayor pro tem,
which is an office that, as it says, mayor for the temporary, and the charter says anytime the mayor is absent, the mayor pro tem shall serve in that position.
So in 2011, when Mayor Patrice Douglas accepted a position with the Oklahoma Corporation Commission and resigned, Charles conducted the city council meetings. With Patrice gone, the remaining council would have to appoint a replacement. Being the current council member with the most experience, many felt Charles was the natural choice to replace Patrice.
Of course, the council had to make that decision and make that appointment,
which they did on November 14th, 2011.
I, Charles Lamb, do solemnly swear.
Along with being called the mayor of Edmond, the chairman of the OMPA board, and many other names, his favorite title by far is Papa.
Hey! And it's a great satisfaction to Nana and Papa to be able to have that time with these kids because they grow so fast.
Oh my goodness. He is a marshmallow. In fact, his children will go, who is this man and where did he come from? Because anything the kids want, he plays with them, he colors, he reads, he's fabulous.
He's the coolest Papa ever. I love Papa.
It's just a wonderful experience being a grandparent.
And doing it all alongside his family right here in Edmond.
It's my home. It's been my home most of my life. Not only the community, but the actual address. And the sense of security is so fundamental to that. I mean, whenever I leave on a city trip or any other trip, best part's coming home.